Next we have Dr Abigail Lebhrect from Mumsnet. She is the data scientist there, and she'll tell us a little bit about how they do moderation and how they're improving it with data science. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon. Oh, goodness, skipped through the slides. Excellent. Right, let's get started. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Abigail Lebhrect, and I'm the principal data scientist at Mumsnet. And I'm going to speak on a really similar topic, which is how do we get established human moderation systems to integrate with automation smoothly. So before I get started, a little bit about Mumsnet. Our motto is that we want to make parents' lives easier, and our site is set up to try and do that. We're probably among the oldest of the social networks. We're coming up for our 20th birthday this coming year. And as you can see, had a bit of a slow start, but since about 2009, we've had a pretty steady growth in traffic. And as of 2017, we were listed as the 10th largest social network in the UK. But I'm here to talk to you about how we go about doing moderation at Mumsnet currently, and how automation could help us with it. So let's start by talking about our current process. Moderation is just a small part of what we call in the company Mumsnet Community, and it's called Mumsnet Community because it's there to support our users with all of their issues, not just issues related to moderating bad speech. So we have over 100 million page views a month, and around 20,000 of those up, and we have about 20,000 lovely, respectful, kind and supportive, helpful posts a day. And Mumsnet Community is a team of 17 human people who are responsible for representing MNHQ, which is our name for Mumsnet, on the talk boards. And they're the first point of contact between Mumsnet's 1 million members and Mumsnet HQ. So people can contact the community through just sending them an email. We have a site stuff board where people have conversations with them openly in public online, and also by reporting a post that a user may find problematic or offensive, and providing a reason why they report it. So they deal with around 500 cases every day. Those 500 cases can be all of those different types of areas, and they read and respond individually to every single report. And that human touch is something that's really important to us as a company. It's something that's really important to our users, and it's important to creating this community feel among Mumsnet users. So what is the moderation process that we have for problematic posts? So Mumsnet Talk is post-moderated. The Mumsnet community has developed over 20 years. There are a lot of very, very loyal users, and they are known to be very quick to spot and report anything we ought to look at early and often. So if something problematic is posted, we hope, and generally it is the case, that it gets reported very quickly. We deal with a huge range of issues, including serious cases to do with mental health, to everyday issues such as asking for a password reset or asking for a thread to be deleted because the creator no longer wants it up there. The community members who work on this follow a community Bible, which is a written document that has been constantly edited over the decades, and this is used as a reference point to give guidance on all issues, and it's a constantly evolving work as well as working with each other to have a consistent response. When a post is deleted, it's always tagged with the reason that it was deleted, for example, racism or sexism, and all this information is stored by us. And we have a small amount of automation at the moment, mainly through bots looking for, really obvious offensive words and spam. And the key problem our moderators find most often is trolls of various types. So we have problems with spammers, we have problems with people who have previously been banned and come back using different details. We have problems with malicious behaviour, pervert behaviour, people who just join the site, naughty newbies, in order to make trouble. So this is what fills up a lot of our community members' times, and obviously they'd rather be doing more interesting things. So that's the manual system that we have in place. Why would we want to automate when we have a good, solid manual system working? So, apologies for the very large slide, but I just thought it was best to have it in one place to sort of discuss it more extensively. These are a list of the things that I think automation would be able to really enhance the manual process. So, firstly, moderator bias. Although we talk about the community Bible and asking advice, there is always a level of subjectivity by any moderator that a consistent rules-based approach could avoid. So if people thought a bit more like machines, possibly they could be fairer. Secondly, consistency. So currently, as I mentioned, we tag posts with what the problem was. But again, this is subject to the moderator. If the moderator feels like there isn't a tag that covers it, they can create a new tag, and what you end up with is lots of different tags, with some that are getting used a lot and some which are being used less. So issue tagging could be more rigorous and balanced using automation system. Scalability, which is really key. Talked about us having a post-moderated system in which registered users have to report a post before there is a problem. Obviously, that's because 17 humans can only do so much. With some form of automation, we can look at moving to a more of a pre-moderated system. Prediction and prevention. So, as many of you know, on social media, when things get toxic, they get really toxic and very quickly. So if there are things you can do to predict if a post or a thread is going to get toxic and kill it before it gets anywhere near that point, that could eventually make our moderators' lives much easier rather than having to pull apart the mess. Repeat offenders, which I mentioned, is a problem of people returning with different usernames after being banned. Our human early identification of banned users based on the type of language that they're using would be a big help. Similarly, spam detection, everybody's favourite first ever data science problem. It's a straightforward problem that humans shouldn't be wasting their time on, which is why we've already got some stuff going on with bots already. Another really good reason for doing it is just because we can. Mumsnet's been around for 20 years. We've been moderating data for 20 years. We've got this incredible resource of labeled data of different types of unpleasant behaviour, and that is the basis of a really fantastic model. So because we have this great data, it would be brilliant to do something with it. And lastly, just to be able to improve the way that we document things. So we talk a lot in AI and automation about using it as a means to do things instead of us, but actually being able to measure, being able to predict, being able to report is also an important part of automation, and creating analytics that can contribute to guideline, develop, identify new trends early, so that we know what is going on our site, could help us build a much better product. Now, of course, when it comes to automation, the first thing we have to think about are the potential unforeseen consequences of moving to a machine-driven approach. So as much as it is possible, I'd like now to say what I believe are the unforeseen consequences that we have yet to foresee of bringing in an automated system over or in conjunction with a human moderated system. So currently human moderators are able to use intuition, judgment and experience to make decisions on contentious issues, and currently we're providing internal training and support to all our moderators for this. If we were to bring an algorithm in, will human moderators be biased by that algorithm? I know there's been a lot of literature written about it. Most recently I read in Hannah Fry's book, Hello World, about an algorithm that's brought into the judiciary service, I think in the US, which helped decide whether people should be released on bail, and it was found that this black box algorithm was biasing against ethnic minorities. And because the judges weren't aware of these biases, they were just following the algorithm. So I think an important part of this is that when humans are using algorithms, they require the level of education to be able to understand that the algorithm is just a form of making a decision in the same way that they are a form of making a decision. So they are using their experience, intuition, and judgment to make a decision, and the algorithm is similarly using its experience and learning to make a decision. So if they get an statistical training and the model is clearly explainable about why it is providing the recommendation that it is, then they will be able to respect the model but understand its shortcomings as well and use it to enhance their decision, not replace it. Secondly, and probably most complicating, respecting the Mumsnet community. As I said, Mumsnet very much sees itself as a community, and its users are quite outspoken about keeping it that way. It's important to allow the free flow of conversation. I mentioned before about trying to predict if conversations are going to turn toxic, but obviously that has to be weighed up with not making users feel like they're constantly having their important conversations shut down. And also understanding that some users who behave badly are not always malicious. So one of the things that Mumsnet community really prides themselves on is that because every case is dealt with by a human, if somebody, for example, behaved very badly on the site and explained to the human that they were dealing with that they were having a mental health episode, they were going through a difficult time, this wasn't something that they were going to do again, they would be able to be treated leniently, kept an eye on, and not necessarily banned from the site, and similarly it can work in other ways as well. But that level of empathy and human interaction is really fundamental to the way that our community works, and any automated system would need to be able to integrate into that way of doing things. Next, understanding the way that Mumsnet users talk. Now, I don't know if any of you here are Mumsnet users, but anyone who is will immediately know what I'm talking about. Mumsnet users are famous for having their own language. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of ABU, Yanbu, DH. There are acronyms that they use. They often communicate in emojis. Mumsnetters are very, very sarcastic. They often quote previous people's messages, which can make it very difficult to remove offensive messages when they're being quoted in following posts. But also context is terribly important. So somebody could say something unpleasant about a poster, and that would be a reason for removal. But if, say, they said something about a poster's mother-in-law in the context of, is my mother-in-law being unreasonable, then that would be considered a very supportive comment and completely okay. So any algorithm would need to be able to take into account these subtle contexts that we see in our data. It's also very important that we avoid any potential biases against users by mode of speech. People speak in different ways based on their level of education, based on their background, and even based on their health status. And that language can sometimes come across as more extreme, even though what they're saying is not necessarily extreme. So it's important not to bias against those people. And also we want to be able to avoid finding ways, as was demonstrated earlier, that repeat offenders can learn to trick the algorithm and use different sorts of language which is equally offensive but not picked up yet by the algorithm to get around it. And we're aware that both false positives and false negatives will lead to significant user dissatisfaction. So getting this algorithm right and being well supported by the human moderators is really, really important. So I think the way that I see moving forward an automated and manual moderation system at Mumsnet is best displayed by this MC Escher picture, which is one that is working constantly in tandem, helping to draw and build the other. So automation can help us balance our manual tagging process. It can help us prevent threads from becoming offensive and look more and more towards some form of standardization in our moderation. We want to make our moderators' jobs easier by using likelihood scores of this post is more likely to be offensive, so that they can focus on that interpersonal relationship, which is the job of the Mumsnet community to be the human face of Mumsnet for our millions of users. We want to look towards early intervention to avoid things getting out of hand and increase speed, but at the same time avoid any biases and, in general, as any site would say, improve user satisfaction. So, thank you very much. Any questions?
We have time for one question. Great, no questions. Let's go get some coffee. There's some coffee downstairs waiting for you, and also in the second room there's posters about misinformation and disinformation that were accepted into the conference. So in total you have about an hour and 20 minutes to peruse the posters and also mill around and talk to each other. So thanks very much. See you back here.